Alright, for this video, we're going to talk about Medusa's untold story. Greek mythology contains a wide variety of scary animals such as manticoras and cyclops. One of the most recognizable creatures of Greek mythology is Medusa. She was a young lady with stunning golden hair. Before falling in love with Poseidon, she made a lifelong vow to stay single as Athena priestess. She broke her word and married him. Athena harshly punished her as a result. She resembled Medusa in appearance, with hag-like features, bloodshot eyes, and burning skin. The formerly lovely hair had evolved into deadly snakes. Her pristine, creamy white skin turned into an alarming shade of green. Everyone avoided her from that point on and hated her for her wandering. As a result of her curse, everyone Athena looked at turned to stone. The origin of Medusa. Aeschylus and Hesiod both mention Medusa in a number of their earlier stories. They claim that she died in Sarpedon, which is close to Sistine, where she spent the majority of her life with her Gorgon sisters. She occurs in Hesiod's Theogony, who was described as Dionysus Scytobrachion in work for the 2nd century, who said that she was born and died in a region of Libya. Herodotus found some evidence that she appeared in Berber mythology, where she was a key figure in their faith. Phorcys is said to have produced 3 children, among them Medusa. He was also known as Phorcys, and he slept in the same bed as her sister Keto. The couple gave birth to Uriel, Steno, and other 2 girls. Despite the fact that both were marine deities, their progeny were chthonic monsters. They also had a second set of sisters called the Graeae, who appeared in the play Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus. He thought both sets of sisters were monsters. Why was Medusa cursed? Greece's Medusa stories stand out because they have changed a lot through time. In Metamorphosis, Ovid claimed that she was lovely at birth, turned into a snake-haired beast, and remained beautiful the rest of her life. She consented to having sex with Poseidon in an Athena shrine after being seduced by him. When Athena discovered them together, she transformed her into a woman with serpents in her hair and a chilly gaze. Her story is preserved in its entirety in the Roman adaptation, but the location of her love interests are changed to Minerva's temple. When Minerva discovered them, Medusa was changed into a terrifying Gorgon. One version of the story depicts Medusa as a beautiful young woman who agreed to become one of Athena's priestesses. Priestesses made a life commitment to her and took a virginity oath. Medusa spent a considerable amount of time pursuing the goddess before she met Poseidon and fell in love with him. The couple decided to wed, which infuriated the goddess. Contrary to other versions that claim she discovered them during an act of passion, this story asserts that she was enraged that her priestess disobeyed her rules. Apparently, Athena became enraged and used her magical powers to turn the woman into a monster that no one would ever want. The soft white skin that once Medusa turned green. She had lost all her appearance, and the snakes were coming out of her hair. Above and beyond was done by Athena. In case a man had feelings for Medusa, Athena made it so that he would turn to stone if he looked into her eyes. Medusa spent the rest of her life wandering the planet by herself. In search of love, but cut apart from her sisters, Medusa explored the African desert. As she went, some of the snakes in her hair fell to the ground. There are currently a lot of snakes in the desert regions of that place, according to a legend. How did Medusa pass away? The bulk of traditions claim that Perseus, with the help of Hermes and others, killed her. The Greek hero went to Seriphus at the king's request because he was in charge of Seriphus. The gods agreed to help the king when he appealed to them for help because they were worried about what the creature would do. Athena gave Perseus a shield covered with mirrors to deflect Medusa's attention. While Hades helped him remain undetected, Hephaestus also assisted the young man by giving him a sword. Unlike the other mortal entities, Medusa was both mortal and capable of passing away. Under coercion, Perseus forced her to look into the shield, and seeing her reflection turned her into stone. So that he could use it as a weapon in battle, Perseus then hacked off her head and seized it. Nobody was aware of the monster's pregnancy at the time of her passing. The child was something she planned to raise with Poseidon. From her corpse emerged the legendary winged horse Pegasus. Chrysaor joined Medusa as well. According to a legend, the giant was said to have been wielding a golden sword. Everyone who bore Medusa's head was allegedly endowed with her power, according to author Jane Ellen Harrison. The woman's head was merely a mask, she continued, for those who would someday wield it. The narrative, according to some writers today, showed the influence a man may have on a woman. Homer never refers to Medusa by name in the Odyssey, although he does describe the monster's head that Hades might give to Persephone. In support of her claims, Harrison offered a translation that insisted the horror wasn't the result of the woman, but rather the horror gave birth to the woman. She died, and Perseus went off at once to fight Atlas. Despite the Titan being a worthy foe, Perseus moved to Medusa's head in his direction as he stood in the middle of the sky. She attempted to fight but gave up and turned to stone when Atlas saw her head. Later, Perseus went to Ethiopia to sleep and rest her head. The blood that slowly seeped from her head created the red coral that is still present in the Red Sea today. Her blood also gave life to the deadly vipers that stalked the Sahara. She was also where the Amphisbiana came from. This creature had a snake-like shaped tail and a dragon-like body. Perseus came across Andromeda, Cassiopeia's daughter, while he was still there. The princess was thought to be the most stunning woman in the entire world, and they fell in love right away and got married. After the wedding, he went to Seriphus to attend his mother's wedding. After learning that Polyctetes had forced her into marriage in order to free his mother, Perseus forced him to look at the skull and turned him into stone. When Perseus realized his mission was finished, he went in search of Athena and presented her with her head. The Aegis-named head was immediately added to Athena's shield. Even though Athena helped Perseus capture the woman, she was aware of the power that the former leader possessed. Athena gave a look of the woman's hair to Hercules. When Hercules arrived at Aegaea, the daughter of Cepheus, Sterope was there to greet him. Sterope defended and guarded the city with the hair. When attackers besieged the city, Sterope is said to have used the hair to create a storm which made them flee in terror. Other interpretations. The Gorgon Medusa is the subject of several stories and interpretations in both Greek mythology and contemporary literature. Harrison believed that there was some evidence that Medusa was only one person and that the myths of her sisters were subsequently introduced. The sisters of Medusa were likely added since sister trios were common in such stories. According to one of her writings, she believed that only Medusa was the real Gorgon and that her sisters were just extras in her story. According to certain historians, the tale of Medusa had some historical support. They contend that the Greeks just created a different story of events that actually occurred. Some people think that the story likely has a historical precedence. One person who endorsed this theory was the historian Joseph Campbell. He emphasized that the literal interpretation shows that the woman assumed a different identity to scare off strangers and anyone who might want to harm her. Later, the man who took the mask used the story to frighten others. Sigmund Freud and the tale of Medusa. 1,000 years later, Medusa's first appearance, Freud, who was born, eventually used her in his psychoanalysis. In 1940, a study named Medusa's Head was well written after Freud's death was released. He claimed the story of her decapitation and the castration shared a number of similarities. He thought that the only reason Medusa was scary was because it was linked to castration to something a man might see. He continued by saying that since it was his first encounter with a feminine form, he associated anything frightening like a naked woman with his mother. The myth, according to Freud, is a part of the Oedipal complex. Men who saw Medusa were struck dumb and mute by their astonishment at her beauty, Freud claimed. According to Freud, there is no truth to the rumors that she turned men into stone. Beth Sealing took a distinctive approach to the Greek narrative. She believes that Athena, more so than the other characters, is the story's main focus. According to a legend, Athena saw Medusa in her temple but found Poseidon raping the woman rather than having a consensual sexual encounter with her. Due to that, she had seen her issues with her father Zeus, and the goddess erupted into a rage. All stories about Medusa are based on this event. Medusa and feminism. In the 20th century, a lot of people investigated the feminism-related aspects of Medusa's narrative. They point out that she was a wonderful woman before she turned into a monster. But that all people remember about her is that she is a monster. Several authors who were working on a book spoke with hundreds of women to learn what they knew about the myth. None of them could recall when they had first heard of the legend of Medusa, but they all agreed that she was a fearsome monster. Many of the women didn't know that what she had looked like before, and they only saw her as a monster. Today's feminists use Medusa as a symbol to represent the rage and anger of women. This idea first appeared in a journal in 1978. The story inside discussed how women can mature when they learn how to control and harness their rage. The cover of the book featured Medusa. This idea was also made use in a magazine in 1986, which claimed that reading her story might help feminists learn how to restrain their rage. Elana Diclomon used the Gorgon as the cover for a book of poems and short stories written by and for lesbians. She believed that Medusa was the ultimate guardian and protector of women. Elizabeth Johnston wrote about how men had criticized Hillary Clinton when she was running for president in 2016 essay. Johnston claimed that it showed how powerful women could still intimidate men. Modern literary experts point to the legend as one of the earliest occasions in history where men falsely accused a victim of being raped. Despite some pointing to the version of the story where Athena met Medusa in the temple, some claim that the legend never states whether Athena voluntarily consented to having sex with Poseidon. Medusa images were frequently employed by women during the height of the Me Too movement. Helene Sixtus was advanced by the hypothesis that the original Medusa story was very different. She believes that Medusa was originally a strong, beautiful woman, and that men changed her mythology to make her into a monster because they didn't value strong women. Sixtus encourages women to use this story to take back control of their lives and reject male dominance. Pictures of Medusa. Medusa and her sisters were depicted in early art as terrifying monsters that any man would be afraid of. The real Medusa had a hideous face and snakes coming out of her hair at the top. She appears more appealing in later works of art. Pindar observed her fair cheeks in 490 BC. While some of these pieces accentuated her beauty, others showed her frightening side. Medusa was also portrayed in a number of Renaissance and later works of art. The Metropolitan Museum in the Art of New York has a ceramic jar made by Paul Ignados, shows his killing her while she slept. This item dates to roughly 450 BC. She is seen on the House of the Fawn plate owned by Alexander the Great, which dates to 200 BC. She is shown on many different nations' flags and symbols. The Trinacria and the Medusa are both depicted on the flag of Sicily. This proves that Athena is watching over the island, and the goddess carried the woman's head on her shield. Her head is also in the coat of arms in Dohalis, a tiny hamlet in Czech Republic. Modern uses of Medusa. Medusa has been in a number of movies and TV shows over the years. Horror films from the 1960s have some of her earliest depictions. A modern rendition of her story was presented in the 1964 Hammer film of the Gorgon. The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, which was released that same year, recounted the fabled story of Medusa. In the 1981 motion picture Clash with the Titans, she portrayed a conventional villain. She played a significant part in the 2010 company remake of the film. She was portrayed by the director as an ordinary woman who only turned threatening when men looked into her eyes. Fans of the series will be interested to know that she features in both the original novel and the movie adaptation of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Uma Thurman, who played the lead in the film, also made an important scene appearance. When Percy and his friends are looking for the Pearl of Persephone in the garden, they came across statues and learn that Persephone turned them into stone. They are able to escape after Percy beheads her. Medusa can also be seen on television. Gordon makes a stop in Sabrina's hometown in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Even though she goes by a different identity, she has the power to turn everyone who stares into her eyes into stone. The TV program Charmed featured Medusa as a character. One of the sisters on the episode found a woman who summoned the beast to punish men. She said that they treated her badly because she had an affair with a member of the group. The sisters convinced the Gorgon to change her mind before she kills the men. And that's it for Medusa's untold story. Thank you.